I stepped out of the car and pulled the wrap tighter around my shoulders. Wind cut across the marble entrance. Flashbulbs, laughter. Men in fitted tuxedos holding glasses they didn't pay for. I walked straight toward the door. The guard blocked me with one arm. Guest list, I opened my clutch. My name wasn't on any digital list, I knew that. I had the printed card. It came unsigned, no message inside. Just the embossed logo of Julian's company and the time. I'm Julian Malkin's mother, I said. The guard didn't flinch. I was told guests wait outside unless escorted. I stared through the glass. There he was, Julian, laughing at something Marla whispered into his ear. His champagne sloshed a little. Her hand slid up his back. Someone snapped a photo. I looked back at the guard. He knows I'm coming. He didn't move. He said no unaccompanied guests. The word hit harder than I thought it would. Unaccompanied. Through the glass, Marla turned. Her eyes met mine. She nudged Julian. He followed her gesture, squinting. Our eyes locked. Then he smirked. She leaned in, and he said something. Something short, sharp. I read his lips. She wouldn't fit here anyway. I stepped back before the doorman could say anything else. My heels clicked twice against the stone, then stopped. I stood still. Just for a moment. Let the cold do its job. Let the words settle like sediment. Then I walked. Not fast. Not slow. Just steady. I passed the cars lining up the couples waiting under the heated lamps, the valet sipping coffee from a paper cup. No one noticed me leave. The woman in emerald green. Alone. Back in the car, I closed the door gently. The driver glanced in the mirror but said nothing. Good. I wouldn't have answered. I watched the building fade behind us. Inside that ballroom were lights, cameras, investors. My son standing beneath a projection screen covered in graphs he didn't build. My name wasn't on the slides. It hadn't been for years. That was the plan, wasn't it? Fade me out. Slowly. Professionally. First the emails with "Thanks Mom" removed, then the credits on the model adjusted, then the Gala invites marked +1 until I was 0. I should have seen it coming. But knowing doesn't mean it hurts less. The car rolled past the waterfront. Boats slept under tarp. The docks were quiet, except for the flags twitching against their poles. I'd always liked that part of Boston sharp air, hard edges, nothing fancy. I reached into my bag, pulled out the card again. No signature. Just the name of the company. Nova. The name Julian took. The name I gave him. I looked out the window and watched the city fall behind me. Let them toast. Let them forget. I had kept the receipts. I slammed the door behind me, dropped my clutch on the entry table, kicked off the heels, walked straight to the kitchen and turned on the coffee maker. No wine, no soft music, just caffeine and silence. I didn't take off the dress, didn't unzip the back, didn't even look in the mirror. I poured the coffee black, no sugar, and sat down at the table where I used to proof Julian's early pitch decks. Same wood, same light bulb flickering above, same woman apparently just quieter now. I pulled out my phone. Nothing. No missed calls, no texts, no apology. But there was a notification. Marla had posted a carousel Nova Gala 10 years strong, grateful to everyone who made it possible. Photo 1, Julian on stage. Photo 2, Marla in gold hand on his chest. Photo 3, Julian, hugging Dr. Patel, the advisor who once told him I was too involved. Photo 4, the whole board, smiling, toasting. No photo of me, no mention. Even when I was in the damn parking lot. I turned the phone face down. I opened the drawer beside me. Manuals, printed prototypes, the first beta test notes, red ink mine, diagrams with sticky notes mine, the original user path flow mine, my handwriting on every inch. I had built that thing with him, iteration by iteration, while he paced and doubted and nearly quit. He didn't even tag me. I stood up, walked to the bookshelf, pulled out the thick blue binder, the one labeled Genesis, our first framework, dated version stamped and most importantly, signed. Julian. And me. I'd let them remove my name from the website. I'd let them simplify the founding story when the press got interested. I even let them cut me out of the early funding round to keep it clean, Julian said. But this binder was still here, and I hadn't erased it. My phone vibrated once. I flipped it over. A comment on Marla's post power couple. Her vision, his genius. I laughed, out loud, short, bitter. Then I walked to the bedroom, opened the closet, pulled down the metal box from the top shelf. Inside, flash drives, backup discs, a notarized agreement with my name on the founding tech. I flipped through it with steady hands. Page 4 still held the clause. If either party materially misrepresents original authorship or application intent, the silent partner reserves the right to full re-examination by independent counsel. That silent partner was me, not erased, just waiting. The coffee had gone cold. I didn't bother warming it. I poured it down the sink, rinsed the mug, dried it, and placed it upside down on the rack. Then I sat back down, opened the laptop, and searched one name. Eli Strathmore. Patent attorney, retired, still owed me a favor. I clicked the contact form, typed slowly. Eli, I'm cashing it in. I opened the door before the second knock. Julian stood there, coat half-buttoned, phone in one hand, eyes already somewhere else. Mom, quick thing? Can we sit? He didn't wait for an answer. He brushed past me, shoes wet from the rain, and dropped onto the couch. I closed the door slowly. What thing? He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. It's nothing complicated, just a bridge loan. $15,000, short term, covering a gap until the next disbursement clears. My throat tightened. 15. It's not much, he said quickly. For the scale of what we're doing, it's crumbs. You'll get it back. No issue. I stayed standing. Marla thought you'd understand. He added, finally looking at me. After all you've already done for us, this is practically repayment. You know we wouldn't even be here if it weren't for you. Repayment. The word hit like sandpaper. He kept talking, filling the air. The Gala costs ran a little higher. Investors expect a certain standard, you get it. It's about image. We can't look small. Not now. I walked to the desk, pulled out my checkbook. The same one I'd used to pay his rent in college to cover his first deposit to keep the lights on when Nova was still a laptop dream. Make it out to you? I asked. Company account. His voice was sharp, practiced. The pen scratched across the paper. The amount looked larger in my handwriting than in his mouth. I signed my name, tore it off, handed it to him without ceremony. He pocketed it without thanks. You'll see the return soon. Promise. He kissed the top of my head, emotion so rehearsed it barely brushed my hair. Then he was gone. The apartment fell quiet. I sat back down at the desk, staring at the carbon copy. My hand cramped from pressing too hard. The page beneath it had nearly torn. Later that night, I scrolled through Marla's feed. She'd posted again. An unforgettable evening. Only the best for Nova. Behind her, the ballroom gleamed. A new lighting rig arched across the ceiling, casting gold on the tables. Centerpieces of glass and orchids. A stage backdrop etched with the company logo in silver. The caption tagged Julian 3 board members and half the guest list. Not me. The comment count climbed. Spectacular. Class act. Looks like millions. I closed the app. My chest burned. The $15,000 wasn't for payroll, wasn't for contracts. It was for champagne fountains and crystal towers, for appearances, for image. I pushed the checkbook aside, reached for the metal box, and placed it on the table. My hand lingered on the lid. If they wanted image, I still had substance. I ripped the envelope open with my thumb. Nova's 10-year anniversary newsletter. Heavy cardstock. Metallic trim. A letter from Julian on the first page. To all who've made this journey possible. I read it twice. My name wasn't there, not once. I flipped to the timeline. Key moments in Nova's history. 2014. The idea. 2015 first prototype. 2016 initial pitch deck. I was there for all of it. But in this version, I didn't exist. They even used the first diagram. My sketch. I knew the asymmetry in the layout, the uneven arrow in the lower corner. But the caption read, Early Iteration by Julian Malkin. I set the newsletter down, walked to the filing cabinet, pulled out the yellow folder marked 2009-2011 pre-beta. Inside the original draft of the concept paper, Julian's name scribbled in pencil. Mine typed in bold. Model co-developed by Vera Malkin and Julian Malkin. I flipped to the footnotes. 3 citations under my academic archive. The same ones they deleted from the company site when they streamlined the story for press kits. 2 years ago, they'd updated the patent registration. Quietly, without notice. I only found out because Eli forwarded the link. Looks like they've refiled, he wrote. Only one name now. Back then I didn't fight it. Didn't want to be the angry mother making waves. Now I stared at the newsletter like it was a stranger's story. I picked up a pen, crossed out Julian's name on the timeline, wrote my own above it. Not because it would change the world, but because it was still true. On page 6, there was a team photo. Julian in the center, hand on Marla's shoulder. Surrounding them, developers, designers, investors. All names listed in the caption, except one. The person who opened her living room to team meetings, cooked meals when no one had time to leave the house, proofread every line of code for logic flow before a single dollar came in. I closed the folder and held it in my lap. They thought erasing was the same as replacing, but I still had the drafts, the invoices, the timestamps. I still had the work. The newsletter slid into the trash. I didn't fold it, didn't crumple it, just dropped it flat and whole. Then I pulled out the black notebook from the bottom drawer. The one I hadn't touched in 6 years, labeled only with a number 1410. My personal log of every design session, every source file, every idea sketched and submitted before Nova had a name. I opened to the last page, dated, signed, archived. They could delete what they wanted, but I'd written everything down. I pulled the drawer open with both hands. The lock stuck for a second, then gave. Metal scraped. Dust rose. Inside was the thick envelope, yellowed at the edges. My handwriting across the front. Keep. Sealed. I set it on the table, pried it open with a letter opener. The paper inside slid out, heavy layered. First page, a notarized agreement. Black stamp signature date. 10 years back. Language stiff binding. My name right under Julian's. Second page, my original intellectual property records. Drafts stamped by the state office. Screenshots of submissions. Copyright forms with numbers that never vanish. My initials signed in ink that hadn't faded. Third set funding documents. Early stage when Julian begged me to co-sign because no bank would trust a 24-year-old alone. There it was. My name listed as silent partner. I remembered the day he asked. His voice cracked from excitement, not nerves. Just until I get my footing, Mom. You'll always be part of it. I touched the page like it might still be warm. Silent partner. That was the phrase that turned into shadow. He'd used it as a promise. He made it into a burial. I stacked the papers neatly. My chest was tight, but steady. Proof. Not memory. Not stories to be dismissed. Actual proof. I pulled my laptop closer, scanned every sheet one by one. The whir of the machine filled the apartment. Each file saved under a date, a title, a code. Redundant copies. Encrypted folder. External drive. When the last page slid through, I sat back, looked at the folder glowing on the screen. 10 documents. Unbreakable. I sipped cold coffee, swallowed it anyway. My hands didn't shake. For years, I let myself believe I had nothing left, that by stepping back, I'd given everything away. But here in black and white was the truth. Julian had built his empire on paper that carried my name. And no matter how many newsletters scrubbed it, no matter how many galas banned me, this envelope still existed. I closed the drawer. This time, I locked it again. Tomorrow, I would call Eli. I waved first. Across the street, Ruth pretended not to see me. She adjusted her grocery bag's head-turned body, angled away. We'd shared coffee every Friday for years. Now she walked faster eyes on the pavement. By the third time it happened, neighbors skipping a hello, old colleagues crossing to the other side, I stopped pretending it was coincidence. I called Elaine, Julian's sister. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same result. On the third attempt, the automated voice cut me off. That night, I scrolled through social media. Marla's name kept appearing in tagged photos. So graceful. Such a strong woman. Then a comment that caught my breath. Poor Vera, hope she's being taken care of. I clicked deeper. Post after post. Whispering tones dressed as kindness. Words like fragile, declining, not herself. Marla's voice behind them. I could hear her shaping it. It's for her own good. She can't handle the stress. I slammed the laptop shut. I wasn't fragile. I wasn't declining. I was being erased. The next morning, I went to the corner cafe, hoping to see familiar faces. The barista, a kid I'd known since high school, hesitated before taking my order. His smile was forced. "Everything all right, Mrs. Malkin?" The way he said it, careful, deliberate, made my skin crawl. I sat by the window with my coffee staring out at the street. A group of women I used to meet for book club passed by. They didn't wave. One leaned in to whisper to another, glancing at me. The heat of the coffee didn't reach me. I felt cold, carved out. Back home, I dialed Elaine again. This time she answered. Her voice was low, rushed. "Mom, I can't get involved," she said before I spoke. Involved in what? She exhaled hard. "Marla says you've been confused, forgetting things, that you're unstable." My throat closed. "And you believed her. I didn't say that. People talk. Investors listen to her. She controls the narrative now. If I contradict it, I look like I'm covering for you." I wanted to scream. Instead, I let the silence hang until she muttered, "I have to go," and hung up. I set the phone down carefully as if it might break. They weren't just excluding me. They were dismantling me piece by piece in public, in whispers, in curated posts that rewrote me into a liability. But I had the envelope, the scans, the truth. If they wanted to smear me into invisibility, they'd have to do it standing on top of documents with my name printed in ink they couldn't scrub. I walked to the drawer, pressed my palm flat against the wood, and left it there until my hand warmed the surface. Tomorrow, I would open it again. I wasn't supposed to see the email. It came through a forwarded thread someone copied me by mistake. The subject line read, "Confirmed attendees, Nova, 10 years forward." I opened it, scanned the names. Julian, Marla, board members, investors, advisors, even Evan. No mention of me, no seat, no invite, no mistake. The event was set for the 4 seasons. Black tie, keynote by Julian himself, followed by what Marla called a vision reveal. I stared at the list. My name had been part of it once. Automatically. Now it wasn't even a question. I called Julian. No answer. Called again. Straight to voicemail. Marla picked up on the 3rd try. Her voice flat clipped. "I figured you'd find out eventually." "I didn't say anything," she continued. "It's not personal. It's just better this way." "Better for who?" For everyone, she said. You know how these things go, public image matters. It's cleaner without the legacy stuff. Founder's old hands. It muddies the story. Julian doesn't see it that way. He agrees, she said sharp now. He wants to move forward. And frankly, so should you. I let the silence stretch. Let her fill it with her own discomfort. But she didn't. She hung up. I stared at the phone for a long time. They weren't even trying to lie gently anymore. This wasn't about oversight. This was strategy. I was being stripped out of the frame like old wallpaper. I opened my email and reread the thread. Evan's name appeared in it. He'd seen the list. Said nothing. Fine. I stood up. Went to the closet. Pulled down the original binder from the first prototype run. My handwriting on every page. Sticky notes with changes. Margin edits. My signature next to Julian's on the final version of the alpha deck. I laid it flat on the table, photographed every page, filed them by timestamp, uploaded them to the encrypted drive. This wasn't nostalgia. It was proof. I printed a copy of the attendee list, drew a red line across it, highlighted Julian's name. Then on a blank page, I started drafting the first letter, to the board. Subject: Foundational Contributions to Nova Systems, for internal review. I didn't write it with anger. I wrote it like a ledger, calm, specific, unshakable. Then I opened the drawer, removed the card Evan gave me. I'd call him tomorrow. I dialed Evan's number before I could second-guess myself. He answered on the second ring. His voice was older, steadier than I remembered. Vera, been a long time. I need to see you, I said. No pleasantries, no buffer. Just that. An hour later, I walked into his office on the 23rd floor. Floor-to-ceiling glass leather chairs, the view of downtown, spread beneath us like a model city. He looked different. Gray at the temples, heavier in the shoulders, but his eyes were the same. Focused, calculating, unblinking. Sit, he said, waving me toward the chair across from his desk. What's going on? I slid the envelope across the polished wood. The one from my drawer. The one with the notarized agreement and the old funding documents. He opened it, flipped through the pages, and let out a low whistle. Well, well, you held on to the good stuff. Julian doesn't know I still have it. He nodded, already making notes in the margin of a legal pad. Founders' agreements, silent partner clauses, original IP records. Vera, this isn't just paper. This is leverage. I leaned back. My palms were damp, but my voice stayed steady. They've erased me. Publicly, legally, even socially. I want to know if I still exist on paper. Evan tapped one page with his pen. Right here. You never signed over your stake. You still hold 20% equity. He's been acting like it's all his, but technically every deal, every contract, every gala he's hosted. You're a silent co-signer. My stomach tightened. Not surprise recognition. I'd always known there was a thread left uncut. What about the patents, I asked. Trickier, he admitted. Looks like they refiled some under his name. But, he flipped another page. This original filing has your name attached. If you have drafts, code samples, anything to prove authorship, we can challenge. It won't be easy. But it's doable. I opened my bag. Pulled out the photographs of the binder, my notes scribbled in the margins, the drafts I'd scanned. I spread them across his desk. Evan's eyes lit up. This is gold. You documented everything. I didn't mean to. It's just how I work, and it's exactly why you can fight back. The room fell quiet. I could hear the city hum beneath the windows, traffic inching along the streets. I thought of Julian in his tuxedo laughing with Marla while the guard pushed me back. I thought of my name missing from every list. I thought of how easy it was for them to erase me because they assumed I'd let them. Evan broke the silence. If you want to move, Vera, you have to decide. You can keep swallowing it, or you can make them choke on the truth. I met his eyes. No hesitation. Then we move. He leaned forward, lowered his voice. First step, don't let them know. Not yet. We build slowly. Paperwork filings, quiet conversations with the right people. By the time they realize what's happening, it'll be too late to undo. I exhaled, steady now. The decision was made. Evan gathered the papers into a neat stack. I'll draft the first letter. You'll have it by tomorrow. I left his office with the envelope lighter, my step heavier with resolve. By the time I reached the street, I already knew where I was going next. I pressed the key into the lock and turned. The metal door clicked and the box slid forward with a scrape that echoed in the vault. My hands shook as I lifted it onto the narrow counter. Inside, time had been waiting. The old hard drives were wrapped in bubble wrap, the labels still in my handwriting. Prototype A, Logistics Model 2.0, Predictive Beta. Beside them, stacks of CDs, manila envelopes, and a faded folder stuffed with printed emails. I drew a breath and started pulling things out. The drives were heavy in my palm. I remembered the nights I built them, coffee gone cold at 2 a.m. Julian snoring in his room, my code alive on the screen. These weren't just backups. They were the skeleton keys to every claim he'd ever made. I plugged the first drive into the bank's clunky loaner computer. The screen flickered, then lit up. File after file appeared. Timestamps, creation logs, code signatures. My initials embedded deep inside the structure. No way to erase them without breaking the whole system. The folder came next. I opened it and scanned the top page. An email from Julian to an investor. I developed a new algorithm that will reduce costs by 20%. Attached was my file, my formatting, my graphs. Page after page, the same pattern. Him presenting me invisible. The pit in my stomach hardened into steel. I copied everything onto a new encrypted drive I'd bought that morning. It glowed green as the transfer bar crept across the screen. One by one, the years of erasure became evidence. When the drive finally beeped complete, I slipped it into my bag and shut the old box. I didn't lock it back yet. I slid the papers, the CDs, the old drives inside again, closed the lid, and pushed it deep into the compartment. No one would know I'd touched it. I signed out of the vault and stepped back onto the street. The city air hit sharp against my face. My bag felt heavier, but in a way that steadied me. I wasn't holding memories anymore. I was holding proof, and proof had teeth. At home, I cleared the table, laid the new drive in front of me, and opened my laptop. I scrolled through folder after folder, backing up every file again onto cloud storage under a fresh alias. Redundancy was safety. Halfway through, I paused. The glow of the screen reflected off a photo frame near the table, Julian, as a boy missing his two front teeth, grinning at me like I was the center of his world. I turned it face down. By midnight, the evidence was layered, encrypted, secure. I sat back, my eyes burning my chest tight. Not with grief this time, with clarity. I shut the laptop, slid the drive into a small fireproof case, and locked it. When I finally lay down, the house was silent. But inside my head, everything was awake. The next morning, I called Evan. I spread the papers across Evan's desk. The contract was clean, neatly bound, the kind of document you'd frame in a boardroom. At the bottom, Julian's signature sat bold and confident black ink against the white page. Above it, the declaration, I, Julian Roth, affirm sole authorship of the proprietary Nova algorithm without contribution from any other party. I read it once, then again. Each word scraped across me like sandpaper. That's fraud, Evan said flatly. His pen hovered over the page. Investors signed off on this. I nodded. 2.5 million. He pitched it last year. And you have proof it was your code. I pulled the drive from my bag and set it down. Timestamps, drafts, iterations. His version was copied directly from mine, down to the typo in the second module. Evan leaned back, exhaling slow. Then he built his empire on a forged signature. I sat there, staring at the curve of Julian's name. I'd traced that same handwriting when he was in grade school, helping him practice cursive. Now it was my erasure written in loops and flourishes. My chest ached, but my voice held steady. They won't care about what I feel. They'll care about numbers, proof, liability. Exactly, Evan said. He tapped the declaration. This isn't just about authorship. If the investors learn he misrepresented core IP, it's securities fraud. Civil and criminal. They'll come for him fast. I closed my eyes for a moment. Images flooded Julian in his tuxedo, raising a glass. Marla's hand on his arm. The guard pushing me aside like I was no one. Now I held the one thing that could split all of it open. I want it airtight, I said. Evan nodded. We'll cross-reference the code, file dates, metadata, even server logs. If it comes from you, we prove chain of custody. You let me handle the filings. Quietly. I thought of Marla's smirk, her voice dripping contempt. It's cleaner this way. Cleaner for them, not for me. I pressed my hand against the folder, feeling the edges dig into my skin. No one breathes a word until it's time. Evan scribbled notes, his pen quick and sharp. The investors will listen if they see risk. They don't care about family drama, but they'll care about losing millions. That's when we move. I nodded. The plan was no longer abstract. It had teeth, dates, signatures. When I left his office, I walked heavier, but not from defeat. The weight I carried was evidence. On the street, people brushed past me, rushing to work, to meetings, to deadlines that seemed important. My deadline was bigger. I gripped the folder against my chest, the pages warm from my hand. Julian had bet everything on one lie, and I was going to make sure it was the one that ruined him. That night, I cleared the table at home, laid out the papers, the drives, the binders. I lit the desk lamp and worked until my eyes blurred. Every file labeled, every cross-check logged. By dawn, the evidence was layered, neat, undeniable. I slid the declaration to the top of the pile, Julian's signature staring back at me. The first domino was ready to fall. I opened the drive and started digging. Folder by folder, line by line. Old code, ancient now by industry standards, still ran clean. It was modular, transparent, exactly how I'd built it. Back then, Julian didn't even know how to comment properly. I found the segments he'd copied lifted whole, just renamed the variables. I opened my editor and began embedding. First a metadata tag, author Avi Malkin original. Then a series of digital watermarks across the core logic files. Subtle, hidden deep in the function trees. Not enough to break the program, but more than enough for attribution. I time-stamped everything, locked edits, created a backup, then 3 more. Each file bore my name now, quiet but permanent. After that, I opened a private repo under an alias and uploaded it all. Then, finally, I logged into LinkedIn for the first time in 4 years. The interface had changed, but my profile was still there. Outdated. Invisible. I updated the headline, Co-Architect Foundational Framework, Nova Systems, 2014-2016. I added links to publications I'd never claimed credit for, white papers that had been buried beneath Julian's name. I didn't need applause. I needed truth. One by one, I edited the description, the experience, the technical contributions. Dates. Tools. The version numbers of prototypes. Proof embedded in structure. I left out bitterness. Just facts. Facts with timestamps, dates that predated his patents by months. When I hit, save my hand hovered over the mouse for a second. Then I clicked. Published. 10 minutes later, I got a notification. Profile viewed, first-degree connection, Julian Roth. He'd seen it. No call, no text. But I knew. The silence was weighty, deliberate. He thought I'd slipped up. Thought he had time. I closed the laptop and reached for the drive again. Next came the investor packet. Then the audit. The files were clean. My work was visible. Now I wanted them to feel it. I unzipped the garment bag. The emerald dress was still there, folded, forgotten, but intact. The silk felt cool against my fingers, heavy in the way good fabric always is. Marla once said it was a bit much for someone your age. I never wore it again, until now. I laid it across the bed, smoothed the sleeves, checked the stitching. Not a tear, not a stain, just dust and memory. I brought it to the cleaners. The woman behind the counter held it like something rare. Haven't seen work like this in years. Neither have I said. Back home, I opened my laptop and drafted the message. No greeting, no softening, just a subject line. Before you promote him. Below it, a short note. This is not an accusation. It's a request for accuracy. I attached 3 files: the drive audit logs, the silent partner agreement, the code documentation with embedded authorship tags, then a link to my updated profile. No threats, no demands, just truth. I scheduled it to send at 9:00 a.m. sharp, 1 hour before Nova's next board vote. I clicked schedule, then sat back. The house was quiet. I made coffee. Waited, watched the clock. When the dress was ready, I picked it up myself. Drove across the city in silence. At home, I hung it on the doorframe and stared at it. The mirror didn't lie. Time had passed. Skin, softer hair, grayer. But my back was straight, my hands steady. I put on the dress. Zipped it up alone. The fabric fell exactly how I remembered. In the quiet, I could still hear Marla's voice, sweet, sharp, cutting. It's not that it's ugly. It's just a lot. It was. That was the point. I added earrings, clasped the necklace I hadn't worn in a decade. No perfume, just steel. At 8:59, I sat at the kitchen table. The email waited in the outbox. At 9:00, it vanished. No alarms, no explosion. Just the quiet click of a door starting to open. I stood, picked up my bag, and left the house without locking it. My phone buzzed once. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, then saw the message. You deserve a seat. Be at the hotel by 8:30. Trust me. No name, no signature. Just that. I stared at it for a beat. Then typed back, why now? No reply came, but I knew where to go. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed my coat keys, the fireproof case. I slid the encrypted drive into my bag and walked out the door. The hotel was already lit up. Valets in black suits. A red carpet rolled halfway to the curb. I kept my head down, moved through the side entrance, and rode the elevator to the executive floor. No one stopped me. Outside the boardroom, 2 assistants chatted by the coffee station. One glanced up, then looked away quickly. Recognition in her eyes, but no alarm. The doors were closed. Frosted glass. Voices low inside. At 8:27, the knob turned. A man in a navy suit stepped out, scanned the hallway, then nodded when he saw me. Mrs. Malkin. This way, please. I followed him. Inside the room smelled like leather and strong coffee. Every seat taken. 12 pairs of eyes turned to me. One of them Miriam Keene, senior investor, early backer. Someone who once told Julian to respect the roots. She nodded. Slight. Sharp. The chair at the end of the table was empty. I walked to it. Sat. No one spoke. No one stopped me. Julian sat 3 seats down, rigid. Marla wasn't there. I didn't look at him. Evan stood at the far wall. He didn't smile. Just handed out manila folders one by one. Each board member opened theirs. Read. Quiet at first, then shifting in chairs. I didn't speak. The documents did. Silent partner clause. IP proof. Signature mismatch. Source code metadata. Julian's false declaration. The $2.5 million contract built on it. Miriam closed her folder. Looked at Julian. You signed this. His jaw clenched. That was years ago. You told us you were the sole author. I am. I opened my bag, pulled out the drive, and slid it across the table. No, I said. You're not. No raised voice, no drama. Just a line that cut. The room stilled. Evan took the drive, plugged it into the wall screen. He opened the folder, labeled Proof, and the playback began. Glasses clinked as I stepped through the back entrance. The Gala shimmered with money. Crystal silk staged smiles. The stage glowed blue, Nova's logo pulsing behind Julian like a heartbeat he hadn't earned. He stood tall, mic in hand, voice full of charm. Tonight, we unveil something special. A new leap in predictive automation. A model that will change how the industry thinks forever. Applause. I moved along the edge of the room, unseen in shadow. The emerald dress caught the light in flashes. He clicked the remote. Graphs appeared. Curves I recognized. Language I wrote. His voice rolled over it like he'd built it himself. I didn't flinch. I counted the seconds. The board would have received the message by now. 8:30 p.m., sharp. Inside every attachment, every signature, every line of code traced, every timestamp. Julian raised his glass. To those who got us here. Marla touched her glass to his lips, curled smug. To the future, she said. Laughter rose. Flashbulbs popped. But 2 tables back, Miriam stood. No toast, no smile. Just her eyes on Julian, arms crossed, mouth tight. She turned, walked toward the exit phone pressed to her ear. One by one, others checked their devices. Hands stilled mid-toast. A hush moved like a wave, soft but deliberate. Julian kept talking, pushing through. But the timing was off now, the rhythm broken. He glanced stage left where the board usually sat. Empty chairs. His voice caught. A half second. Enough. I stood behind a column, watching. Marla noticed first. Her face flickered. Smile dimmed. I stepped forward just enough to be seen. Our eyes locked. Hers narrowed. She looked at Julian, whispered something sharp. He looked toward me and paused. Just for a moment. I didn't move. He turned back to the crowd. Tried to recover. Innovation, he said. That's what we do. But no one clapped. The silence was louder than the music. I crossed to the far side of the room, slipped into the hallway. Behind me, voices began to rise, not applause, but questions. I kept walking. The chairman stood. No warning, no cue. Pause the presentation, he said into his mic. Julian froze mid-sentence. Lights dimmed. The music died. The screen behind him flickered, then changed. The new slide wasn't his. A black background, white code. Simple. Unmistakable. At the bottom, author V. Malkin original silence dropped like a stone. No one moved. The chairman cleared his throat. Before we continue, I believe the board has something to address. Julian turned, hands tight at his sides. His eyes scanned the screen. Then the crowd. Then me. Too late. From the back of the room, a second display lit up an investor feed. Attachments open. Contract scans. Email trails. My name. My timestamp. His forged declaration. He tried to speak. The mic picked up nothing but air. Cameras still rolled. Guests stared. Phones pointed. Marla stepped forward, whispering into Julian's ear. He didn't blink. Miriam moved toward the stage. Took the second mic. This company was built on a lie, she said, her voice clear, cold. And we have the documents to prove it. Julian opened his mouth. No words came. Marla backed away. I didn't speak. I didn't have to. The screen kept looping through the code, each section bearing my authorship, each line matching the patent Julian claimed alone. One man stood and walked out, then another, a donor, a partner. One by one, chairs scraped. The chairman faced Julian. We'll reconvene with legal counsel. You are advised not to speak further tonight. Security moved subtly to the edges of the room. Not aggressive, just present. Julian stared at the floor, then at me. He looked like a man seeing his reflection crack. I met his eyes. I didn't smile. Then I turned and walked toward the exit. The applause didn't come. Only the sound of everything stopping. They called me in at 7:42 a.m. No cameras, no audience, no Julian, just a long table, 12 chairs, and a pitcher of water no one touched. Miriam gestured to the seat at the head. "You'll sit here." I did. I opened my bag, laid the folders down, one by one, years in sequence, clean, marked. Someone closed the door behind me. No one spoke at first. They flipped pages, scanned signatures, checked time logs. The silence wasn't hostile. It was heavy. Processing. Evan stood at the back, arms crossed, watching. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to. One board member cleared his throat. "These documents, this is extensive." I nodded, because the theft was. Another leaned forward. "We've verified the server metadata. The early code bears your digital signature across multiple commits. And the emails I asked, dozens. Julian forwarding your files, editing your name out before passing them on. They kept reading. I sat still. Eventually, Miriam closed her folder, looked directly at me. "Why didn't you come forward sooner? I built it for him," I said. "Not for this." A beat passed. Then another voice, quieter. "And now I'm not asking to be honored," I said. "Just documented. Accurately." No one argued. A younger board member tapped her pen against the table. "The clause in the silent partnership. It means you still retain equity. 20% untouched," Evan said. "Never signed away. And he acted with sole ownership during multiple funding rounds," the chairman added. "That opens us to liability." He knew, I said. He gambled you'd never look close enough to catch it. The room went still. Then the chairman picked up his phone. Dialed. Waited. "Remove Julian from internal channels," he said. "Effective immediately. No raised voices. No debate. Just process." I sat there while they restructured the story. Evan handed over the drive. A backup. Encrypted. Sealed. "I'll provide sworn affidavits if needed," I said. "You won't be asked to." "It's clear," Miriam said. They stood one by one, not rushed, not cold, just final. I gathered my folders, tucked them back into the bag. As I reached the door, the chairman spoke again. "You'll hear from legal by Monday. Expect updated documentation." I nodded and walked into a hallway filled with echoes. I opened the envelope on my kitchen table. Inside, wire transfers emails, signed expense reports. Every line told the same story. Tens of thousands moved through Nova's consulting budget, then out to Marla. Spa packages, jewelry, a private trip labeled wellness retreat. The consulting title she used didn't match any actual filings. No tax ID, no registered business. I forwarded everything to Evan. No commentary, just the files. He responded with one line, "This will do." By noon, the board had called an emergency meeting. I wasn't there. I didn't need to be. Julian tried to speak. Evan told me later, but they shut him down. The files spoke louder. They asked for his passwords. He refused. They locked him out. At 3:14 p.m., the chairman sent me a summary. Internal audit triggered. Legal review underway. Control of assets frozen. At 4:40, another message. Please provide your account of all known financial discrepancies tied to Marla Roth. They used her full name, not his wife, not your daughter-in-law, just Marla Roth. Detached. Surgical. I responded with a spreadsheet. Dated entries. Marked inconsistencies. Things I'd noticed back when I was silent. They reviewed, responded, thanked me. By evening, Marla's name had been removed from Nova's internal directory. Julian was unreachable. His phone went straight to voicemail. At 7:00 p.m., Evan called. They're drafting the public disclosure statement. I didn't ask what it would say. I already knew. I poured a cup of coffee, sat down, opened my laptop. One new message. Subject statement of ownership. Pending review. Attached my name, my title, my share. I didn't reply. I just stared at it quiet and waited for the next one to arrive. I pushed the door open and stepped into the hallway. Julian was there. Leaning against the wall, eyes hollow tie pulled loose like the air had gone out of him. "Mom," he started. I didn't pause. My heels clicked against the marble, each step louder than his voice. He moved to block me. "You don't understand." They twisted it. I shifted left. He shifted with me. His eyes darted desperate, like a boy trying to explain broken glass before his father got home. "I can fix it," he said, reaching for my arm. I stopped, looked down at his hand. He pulled it back. There was nothing to say. The weight of years, the late nights, the stolen drafts, the erased nameplates was already speaking for me. I walked past him. The air between us was sharp, final. Behind me, his voice cracked. "I did it for us." The words bounced off the walls, thin, flimsy. I kept going. The elevator doors opened. I stepped in, pressed the button, and watched the hallway shrink to a slit of light. Julian's silhouette didn't move. The doors shut. The ride down was silent. My hands rested on the folder in my bag, not clutching, just holding. When I reached the lobby, people were still buzzing executives, whispering assistants, carrying boxes security, watching everything too closely. I walked straight through. No one stopped me. Outside, the night air was cool, the city restless. I breathed once deep. The fight was over. The silence was mine. And the next step was waiting. I unzipped the suitcase and laid it flat on the bed. One pair of shoes, slacks, a blazer, a notebook. No extras. No what-ifs. I moved slowly, not from age, but certainty. Every motion had weight. In the kitchen, I poured the last of the coffee, let it go cold while I checked the folder one last time, updated contracts, corrected ownership filings board, sign off on my reinstatement. All of it stamped. All of it mine. I walked to the hallway, opened the bottom drawer. Inside, right where I left it, lay the envelope. I slid it open. The keycard caught the light. My name, Vera Malkin, freshly printed. Not an old badge, not a guest pass. A new card. I ran my thumb across the edge. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I just held it. Next to it sat the old one. Faded. Demagnetized. From back when my title had been erased before it was ever printed. I left the old one in the drawer. Zipped the suitcase. Locked the folder, slipped the new badge into my jacket pocket. I turned off the lights, not out of habit, but closure. Outside, the wind pressed against my coat, but I walked steady. No calls, no apologies, no attempts to explain. I didn't need them. What I had now couldn't be given. It had to be reclaimed. By the time I reached the car, the sun had started to break through the clouds. Light skimmed across the dash. Warm, but not soft. I opened the door, set the suitcase down, and drove. The building stood just as I remembered it. Steel glass, clean lines, but it didn't loom the same way. I parked, stepped out, walked straight to the front. The receptionist looked up. Her eyes flicked to my badge, then to my face. She stood. "Welcome back, Ms. Malkin." I nodded once. No words. I moved toward the elevator, pressed the button. When the doors opened, I stepped in. Alone. No weight in my chest. The badge buzzed softly against my hip. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. No receptionist, no chatter. Just the hush of a building still waking up. My new office sat at the end of the hall. Clean lines, frosted glass. No brass plaque yet, but the door opened when I scanned the badge. The light clicked on. I set the bag down. Everything was already in place. Desk. Chair. Shelves. No clutter. Just space. I walked to the corner. The coffee machine sat ready. A fresh bag beside it. I brewed a cup. Let it steam. The mug waited on the counter. White ceramic. Heavy. Block letters across the side, still mine. I poured the coffee. No sugar, no cream, just heat. I carried it to the desk. The framed photo sat near the window. Emma, at 5, face covered in cake, gap-toothed and laughing. I set the mug beside her. Sat down. Opened the drawer. Inside a pen, a notepad, a key. That was all. I didn't need noise. I didn't need applause. I had my name. I had my work. I had my silence, finally, whole, finally, mine.